In today's video, we're continuing on with our NHL 2020 Playoff Predictions. Many of our viewers have been voting on who's going to win the qualifying rounds, so today we are ready to predict the first round of the playoffs and beyond. We'll jump into that coming up next. So welcome back to another video here, Top Shelf Hockey. Now, as I mentioned, today we're doing some playoff predictions. But before we jump into what we're predicting today, let's just do a quick recap on how we got to where we are now. Now, through our posts and polls that we've been posting here on our community tab, our viewers have been voting on what they think is going to happen early on. They've already made all their predictions for the qualifying rounds, as well as who they feel is going to win the top four tournament as well to determine the top four seeding. So let's take a quick look and recap of what has been predicted so far. So most recently, you've been voting on polls for the top four spots in the East and the West. Let's take a look at those results. The Eastern Conference had a overwhelming vote of the Boston Bruins being the number one seed, with Tampa Bay getting the number two seed, the Philadelphia Flyers being voted the third likeliest one, so we put them third, and the Capitals being the least likely of the four, so we put them with the number four seed. So that's based on viewer votes through our poll on how they felt the top four seedings were going to go. Now let's take a quick recap of how all the votes went for the qualifying round predictions that all the viewers have voted on for that previously as well. We had the Pittsburgh Penguins voted to overwhelmingly to beat the Montreal Canadiens in their qualifying round series. Also had the Toronto Maple Leafs predicted to beat the Columbus Blue Jackets. That one was a little bit closer, but the Leafs did get the vote to pull ahead. The New York Rangers were, even though they're lower seed here, were voted to beat the Carolina Hurricanes, and that one was pretty overwhelming as well. And the New York Islanders were voted to defeat the Florida Panthers in their qualifying round series. So with all those predictions already made, here's how things set up for the first round of the playoffs in the Eastern Conference. We'll take a look at that, and then we'll jump over and look at how things are going to look so far in the Western Conference. So this sets up the following matchups for round one in the Eastern Conference playoff. Now, we now know that all the teams will be reseeded after each round, so that would set up the number one seed Boston Bruins against the number 8 seed New York Rangers. The number 2 seed would then become the Tampa Bay Lightning against the number 7 seed Toronto Maple Leafs. The Philadelphia Flyers would be the 3rd seed and doing battle to number 6 seed New York Islanders. And then we'd have one more battle yet again of Ovi versus Sid, number 4 Washington versus number 5 Pittsburgh in the Eastern Conference first round of the playoffs. So now I'm going to give you my thoughts and predictions on each of these series, and then I'm going to be putting up a poll on the channel for each of these series as well, so stay tuned for that. They'll start going up today and over the course of the weekend. All 8 series that we'll have in round one based on previous predictions will be up, and I want you to vote. So now let's give you my thoughts on this opening round and what I see happening here. For the Boston Bruins versus New York Rangers, I'm going to predict that the Boston Bruins win this series. I think the Rangers likely could take down Carolina. They did have a pretty easy time with them during the regular season. They have a pretty up-and-coming team there. Obviously, they have a pretty hot young goaltender in Igor Shesterkin. Artemi Panarin was having a Hart Trophy-like season, and they have some pretty other good supporting cast around them. So I do think the Rangers could get by Carolina, but the Bruins are just too deep, too strong, and too experienced. I don't see Boston faltering there. Tuukka Rask has had another solid year. They're obviously their top line, Pasternak, Bergeron, and Marchand continue to be one of the top lines in hockey. You still got Zdeno Chara, Charlie McAvoy in the back end, Torrey Krug. Obviously, this extra rest might help a team like Boston. Many of their top players are, not as young as they used to be. They're not certainly too old, but for the most part, but they're not, super young either. So maybe this extra layoff might just be good for Boston. I see them taking down the Rangers in a best-of-7 series, likely in 5 or 6 games. Next up, we'd have the number 2 seed Tampa Bay Lightning battling the number 7 Toronto Maple Leafs, and I am going to predict that if this series were to happen, I would pick the Lightning to take the Leafs down. Now, in my opinion, Toronto has come a long ways. They've certainly grown a lot over the last 3 or 4 years, but they're still not quite ready to make that leap. I don't see them being really stronger than Tampa in any particular area. If you look at goaltending, I'd give the edge to Vasilevsky over Anderson. If you look at the blue lines, clearly Tampa Bay's blue line is stronger than the Maple Leafs. And when it comes to scoring up front, the Leafs are very dynamic, but so were the Lightning. And before the NHL pause, the Lightning actually had more goals scored than Toronto anyhow, so they're pretty comparable offensively. So really, I give the edge to Tampa in this scenario. Many of the Tampa Bay Lightning players have a lot more playoff experience as well. We've seen them make some deep runs in recent years, and it wouldn't be completely shocking to see a bit of an upset with Toronto winning, but I'm just not sure that they have have it in them just yet. I think getting past their qualifying round series of Columbus would be about as far as they can go with how this team is currently built today. At least that's my opinion, but I guess you'll have your chance to vote on that as well and see what the majority of viewers feel. But I'm predicting Tampa over Toronto in this series. Next up, we'd have the number 3 seed Philadelphia Flyers battling the New York Islanders. And in this case, I'm going to take Philly to take down the Islanders. I mean, I know the Islanders have been a really strong defensive team, so there is a possibility that, again, that I wouldn't be completely shocked to see the Islanders maybe pull this one out. But the Flyers were one of the hottest NHL teams before the NHL paused. They were clicking on all cylinders. Their blue line was playing well. Carter Hart was playing well between the pipes. They were getting lots of offense from their top guns. And I think if that continues, Philadelphia is going to be a really strong force all the way here in these playoffs, and he would certainly stand as good a chance as any to possibly come out of the Eastern Conference. So I am predicting the Flyers to take down the New York Islanders, but I can see the Islanders giving them a really hard-fought battle, maybe even going 7 games to go to the distance here. Next up, we have another battle of Ovechkin versus Crosby in the 4 versus 5 series, Capitals versus Penguins. I think this is going to be another highly contested matchup. Of course, we saw the Capitals lose to the Penguins many times over the years, but a few years ago, they managed to finally beat the Penguins and go on to win the Stanley Cup. But I do see a different outcome this year. I think Pittsburgh is going to take this one down. They're going to have a lot of healthy bodies coming back. They're going to have a healthy Jason Zucker, a healthy Jake Gensel. Crosby and Malkin are rested up. Tristan Jarry's going to be the young goalie, likely starting. I think he'll get the job done. I think he'll get more of the playing time than Matt Murray will. At the same time, you're going to have Braden Holtby likely starting on the other side for the Capitals, but I see him being on a short leash because they do have Samsonov there as well. With all the changes that the Penguins made and all the rest that they've had and injuries that they were able to overcome, I think they'll win. Now, the Penguins are still going to have some injuries. They're going to be without a guy like Nick Bukestad, but I still think overall that they're going to be healthy enough to come out here ahead of the Capitals. So I'm predicting the Penguins to take down Washington, but again, this could be a long, hard-fought battle, probably even going 7 games. So if all these predictions were to come true, that would set up the next round of the playoffs as the Boston Bruins doing battle with the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Tampa Bay Lightning doing battle with the Philadelphia Flyers in round 2 in the final 4 of the Eastern Conference. So as I mentioned before, we're going to do this one round at a time. I'm going to give you my thoughts, then I'll give you a chance as a community to vote, and then we'll put all of this together to see where everybody feels who's going to win the Stanley Cup and make a choice here together as a community. Now let's jump over and take a look at where everything is in the Western Conference. Now, based on the poll results, here are how the breakdown was for the top 4 for what you guys all thought how these teams were going to break out here and win the top 4 seeds. Now, by far the most votes went to the Colorado Avalanche, so they voted the number 1 seed. St. Louis was next at number 2. Vegas came in 3rd, and Dallas Stars are in 4th place. Now here's a quick recap as well of how everybody had voted previously for the qualifying round. We had the number 5 seed Edmonton Oilers defeating the Chicago Blackhawks with an overwhelming 78% of the vote. We had the Winnipeg Jets defeating the Calgary Flames with 68% of the vote. We had the Nashville Predators defeating the Arizona Coyotes with just shy of 60% of the vote. And we had the Vancouver Canucks with an overwhelming 80+% over the Minnesota Wild for those 4 teams to move on. So that sets up the following matchups in the first official round of the Western Conference 2020 NHL Playoffs. That gives us Colorado Avalanche versus the Winnipeg Jets, the St. Louis Blues versus the Vancouver Canucks, the Vegas Golden Knights against the Nashville Predators, and the Dallas Stars would then do battle with the Edmonton Oilers. So here are my thoughts and predictions, and as I mentioned, there'll be polls going up for all these ones as well, so that you guys can all vote as viewers and as a community, and we'll see here what we collectively all think together. Now, in your first matchup, you have the Colorado Avalanche and the Winnipeg Jets. I am going to pick the Avalanche to take down the Jets in this series. Winnipeg, I think, would be strong enough to get by Calgary, but the Avalanche, I think, are just going to be too good and too deep here for Winnipeg to take down. The Avalanche are a team that's really having a strong year. They've been breaking out over the last couple seasons, and I think they're going to be a force to be reckoned with in this Western Conference playoffs. Guys like Nathan McKinnon, Gabriel Landeskog, Mikko Rantanen are all going to be healthy and rested, and they're going to be an absolute force. I think the Avalanche have the better blue line. Winnipeg's blue line, of course, went through a lot over the last year. They do have a couple strong blue liners still in the lineup, but overall, I'm going to give the edge to the Avalanche. They have too much dynamic players on that blue line like Makar and Girard and others back there that's just going to create a lot of offense from the back end. Even though I give the Jets the edge here in goal with Connor Hellebuyck having a Vezina-type performance for the season, I think it's just not going to be quite enough, and the Avalanche will take down the Jets most likely in 6 games. Now next up we have the St. Louis Blues and the Vancouver Canucks. Now before we had all the confirmation on how the full format was going to work, when we first knew it was 24 teams and how the first round was going to go, but one of the key things that we did not know, which we know now, is that after each round they will be reseeded. Obviously, we were looking at a potential bracket approach, and I had at that point predicted the Canucks going a little bit further here, but I think the Blues will take down Vancouver. With the bracket approach that we had originally in my first prediction video a few weeks ago, just the way the matchups, I think, were a little bit more favorable for Vancouver in that round, but I'm just not sure they can beat the defending Stanley Cup champion St. Louis Blues. Strong goaltending, they have a pretty solid decor, and they have a pretty good mix of forwards who can do a lot of things well, offensively and defensively. So for me, the young upstart Canucks, even though they have a bright future, they're going to gain a lot of valuable experience here. They'll go about as far as Jacob Markstrom can get them, but I don't think it's going to be enough. Having a strong goalie, the inexperience for the young Canuck players are going to probably come through here, and I think the experience from the Blues will pull them ahead. And that's why I have the Blues winning, likely in 5 games. Now next up we have the Vegas Golden Knights doing battle with the Nashville Predators, and I'm going to predict Vegas to win this series. I personally don't have a lot of confidence in Nashville. I do have a little bit more confidence in them than Arizona, but in my original prediction video, I would not have been shocked to see the Coyotes actually take down the Predators. Just the way Nashville has played this year, just not sure that there's quite the right mix there, and I lost confidence in the goaltending. And obviously overall they just were not having the ability to score, even though they have some pretty good offensive players in that forward group. But I guess as a group, as a community here, we've kind of voted Nashville to beat Arizona, so they're in this against Vegas. Too deep in the forward group, and I think overall they're going to get better goaltending as well, and it's going to be the difference. So I say Vegas takes down Nashville, likely in 5, maybe 6 games. Now next up we have the Dallas Stars doing battle with the Edmonton Oilers. Now I know the Stars have been a pretty stingy defensive team, not giving up a lot. They've had good goaltending, decent blue line, but I am going to predict an upset here and say the Oilers take down the Stars. It's not a drastic upset really if you look at it. It's a 4 versus 5 series, but overall the Edmonton Oilers are going to need to get some strong goaltending. Obviously that will be the key. Their goaltender is going to have to compete with Ben Bishop and be on a similar level, which is not going to be an easy task, but if they can get the goaltending, I think Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl and company can score themselves to victory. Because I know Dallas has been a somewhat stingy team this year, but I think they're going to have their hands full with an offensive juggernaut like the Oilers. I'm not sure how far the Oilers can go, but I do think the Oilers can take down Dallas. So let me know what your thoughts are when we get the poll, if you agree with me or not. But I do think this is classified as a bit of an upset considering the Stars are one of the top 4 teams. But the Oilers were in the mix, and in that division lead for a big chunk of the year as well. So not a real shocker here, at least I don't think so. So those are my predictions for the first round of the playoffs based on how we've voted here as a community to set up these matchups. So like I said, stay tuned. There's going to be several posts between today and tomorrow with all these 8 series, so you can vote and give me your opinions, and then we'll see how the results turn out as a community so we can continue making predictions for the next round and beyond to determine who we think will win the 2020 Stanley Cup once the 2014 playoff format resumes, hopefully here at the end of July, 1st of August, when we have playoff hockey to look forward to. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing and turning on your notifications so you don't miss any future content, and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. I'd appreciate it if you did. As always, thank you for watching, and I will catch you next time.